Dr. York has suffered 15 years of severe and harsh punishment. He is now detained in the most secure prison in the United States, forced to serve 135 years for crimes he did not commit. For many years, Dr. York was not allowed to access copies of what has been sealed to defend himself of those heinous accusations for which he did not commit. There has not been any evidence presented to convict Dr. York as to the transportation and/or RICO charges. The so-called medical evidence used to incriminate Dr. York are falsified contrary to what most people are led to believe, and I will address them accordingly with sound mind. Now, according to their records, sexual transmitted diseases were used to indict Dr. York, and according to their own records, a few of the alleged were said to have these sexually transmitted diseases, and this was considered a key evidence. Now, as such, Dr. York did not have, nor has he during the time of the alleged offenses, had any sexually transmitted diseases. Dr. York was indeed framed by agents. False information was submitted into the courts against him. The prosecution deliberately misrepresented the truth against him. What is interesting to note is that Dr. York, on September 30th, 2009, outlined these facts in the pursuant to habeas corpus 28 USC section 2255. This was an attempt made to move the course to expediently quash the untrue indictment brought against Dr. York. One thing that I would like to put on record to those who are listening is that when Dr. York was arrested and falsely detained on May 8th, 2002, there was no indictment. There was no booking. They didn't know what to do. It wasn't until October of 2002, which is 5 months after this unlawful detention, that he was indicted and booked by none other than Acting Sheriff Howard Richard Seals. Now, the reason why is because they knew that they messed up. They knew that they detained a foreign diplomat and a consul general for the Republic of Liberia. Now, according to their own laws, this is a prosecutorial misconduct and prosecutorial vindictiveness. Now, it wasn't only agents of the FBI, but also Sheriff Howard Richard Seals, who suppressed evidence that would have exonerated him 15 years ago, which brings us to the point about the medical. There is absolutely no records that indicated any treatment of any sexually transmitted diseases. The false claim of sexually transmitted diseases was used unlawfully to frame, charge, and convict Dr. York. Dr. York himself has uncovered and raised the true facts in accordance to his own legal and medical history. This is also inclusive of all full medical and Bureau of Prisons medical records history. Now, during the months after Dr. York's arrest of May 8th, 2002, and having allegedly obtained positive STDs, medical results from a few of the alleged whom he was accused of having sexual relations with for years, up to and until the time of his arrest of May 8th, 2002. An unwarranted, forced body search was done on Dr. York. This was done on July 25th, 2002. Now, keep in mind what was mentioned earlier, that Dr. York was not indicted and was not booked until October of the same year. No evidence. On November 13th, 2002, Dr. York, counselor, was notified of evidence discovery materials. In the discovery, which was submitted by Richard L. Smoltry Jr., it was stated and I quote, "Some of the alleged were tested positive for sexually transmitted diseases. In fact, a total of 3 of the alleged. One was tested positive for chlamydia, one was tested positive for herpes simplex 2, and lastly, one was tested positive for both chlamydia and herpes simplex 2. This letter was used to show the correlation of alleged sexual offenses to each of the alleged victims. This letter was then entered into evidence against Dr. York by Richard Moultrie. Sexually transmitted diseases were wrongfully used to charge and convict Dr. York. The disputing fact to this report is that at no time was Dr. York ever diagnosed as having chlamydia, and you can find the documents listed in the medical notes and laboratory reports outlined in the 2255. At no time was Dr. York ever diagnosed as having herpes simplex 1. The question should be asked, how could Dr. York have sexually abused each alleged victim and transmitted diseases, and he did not have sores, symptoms, or diagnosis of having chlamydia or herpes 1? Nor does there exist any medical records alleging that he has received treatment for the above sexually transmitted diseases. It is not possible. The only relevant tainted diagnosis of herpes simplex 2 came by way of a court-ordered body search on which inadvertently gave 2 federal agents the authority to unwarrantfully search and seize Dr. York's entire body to detain blood and cheek samples to analyze for any and all sexually transmitted diseases. There are further disputed facts about this matter. Dr. York did not have any sexually transmitted diseases prior to May 8, 2002, nor after such date and time. Confirmation of the fact are as follows. 1. Having been incarcerated and detained in approximately 11 state and federal penitentiaries, he was never diagnosed as having herpes 2, nor is there any medical of Dr. York's being treated or and cured for herpes 2 or any other sexually transmitted diseases. There were no cold sores on his lips or other parts of his anatomy. Dr. William S. Thompson has been Dr. York's private physician for approximately 7 to 8 years prior to Dr. York's arrest on May 8, 2002. Now also, on February 18, 2003, Dr. William Thompson sent a letter to the following: Kevin Mason of the United States Middle District Court Probation Office. In this letter, he stated the following: 1. The seriousness of receiving proper medical care of his life-threatening illness. Number 2, how long he has been under care of this particular doctor. Number 3, how his medical records were removed off the land of his own home on May 8, 2002. Number 4, how it was to his understanding the medical records were in the possession of the Federal Bureau of Investigation in Atlanta, Georgia. Number 5, Dr. York's medical history to the best of his knowledge. Now, I'd like to make this statement. We now know that the FBI raided the land on May 8, 2002. We also know that according to the letter sent in by the good doctor, Dr. William Thompson, that his own home and personal property, as well as all medical records that he had as a private physician for Dr. York, was also seized. That would mean that the FBI would have all the evidence they need, just based on his medical history, to throw away the keys. So why was it necessary to perform an unwarranted body search of Dr. York? Why was it necessary to take blood samples from him? Where is the DNA evidence if, according to the allegations, right, these so-called victims were abused all the way up until they were taken off the land on May 8, 2002 by the Department of Child Services? Also, this leads us to number 6, which is a very important sentence, where Dr. William Thompson states, and I quote, "I recall you asking me if I had any identified sexually transmitted diseases during my years of caring for Dr. York. As I stated, I have never found in him, nor have I ever had suspicion of any sexually transmitted diseases in Dr. York. Even further, I have never treated nor known of any treatment given to Dr. York for sexually transmitted diseases." On November 2007, the Holden Law Office, with the assistance of Paralegal Professionals Incorporated, subpoenaed Dr. York's entire medical records from every state and bureau of prison that he was housed in. Now, you all have to remember that this is 11 different prisons. Attorney R. Holder did this on behalf of her clients at the time. The following was discovered. The facts concerning Dr. York. Throughout the investigation, sexually transmitted diseases were used as fear tactics on the alleged witnesses to accuse Dr. York of having inflicted such sexually transmitted diseases on alleged witnesses. Also, the prosecutor accused Dr. York of having sexual relations with these individuals from the 90s until the removal from the property of 404 Shadydale Road. Now, this brings us to the next point. Some of the accusations even alleged to have started as young as 3 and 4 years old. However, after numerous hospitals, laboratory testing, doctors, nurses, and in-depth medical exams, no medical evidence exists to confirm such false accusations. Further, there is no proof of evidence to support these sexually allegations against Dr. York. If y'all think about that, wouldn't all the wives of Dr. York also have these STDs? Remember, herpes simplex 1 and 2 is spread not only through contact, but also through sexual contact. Wouldn't any and every woman who has slept with Dr. York during that time also have these STDs? Wouldn't his children, conceived after the so-called alleged acts, that's from the 90s up until the point of the arrest, also have been physically affected? Now, allegedly, Dr. York was diagnosed by one medical report of federal agents as having herpes simplex 2. Yet there is absolutely no record of Dr. York being treated for this illness either before or after his arrest on May 8th of 2002. On or between April 1st of 1993 and May 7th of 2002. Also January 19, 2001, September 11th, 1996, September 11th, 1999, the exact dates being unknown to the grand jury in the state of Georgia. Contrary to these accusations, the Scottish Rite Lab interim report, which is located 100 Johnson Ferry Road, Northeast Atlanta, Georgia, and the Erwin Sigmund, I think his name is, the medical director at the time, medical records for this individual provided the United States with a conflicting medical history. These tests was inclusive for throat cultures, GC, anal laboratory work, herpes type 1 and 2, received May 14th, 2002. All this occurred in 2002. The alleged in Dr. York case rated an index value of 0.10 on herpes 2, yielding a negative result on herpes 2. the type that Dr. York was allegedly to have. Also, negative of any significant level of detectable IgG. All other sexually transmitted diseases provided negative as well. This is also inclusive of HIV, chlamydia, gonorrhea, all proven to be negative. The overwhelming medical evidence alone exonerated him. What more do one need? Dr. York was arrested on May 8, 2002. He was not booked nor charged for 5 months. October 2002, that's the date now. His conviction of 135 years of over 200 counts of over-indictment was substantiated by way of a 1998 anonymous letter sent to the Department of Family and Child Services alleging sexual abuse. One zealous Sheriff Howard Seals, who had malicious intents towards Dr. York for the past 7 years prior to the May 8th of 2002 arrest, what he did was spearheaded this investigation. It is also documented that witnesses since his arrest has come forth to testify on his behalf. Mind you, most of these witnesses were stated in the FBI allegation to be victims. Furthermore, it is also documented that most of those who testified as alleged victims have willfully recanted testimonies.